Tonight, we're embarking on a journey together. Not a journey to somewhere distant, but a journey inward. A journey to the peace that already exists within you, waiting quietly beneath the noise of daily life. This isn't about learning something new or becoming someone different. It's about recognizing what's already true, what's always been here, patient and unchanging like bedrock beneath shifting soil. Before we begin our exploration, I invite you to share something simple. Comment below and tell us what time it is where you are right now and where in the world you're listening from. Are you in a quiet bedroom as midnight approaches? Perhaps it's early morning where you are and you're seeking rest after a sleepless night. Maybe you're thousands of miles away in a time zone I can't imagine, finding this moment of peace in your own unique now. Sharing this creates a beautiful connection, a reminder that across this entire planet, people are pausing, breathing, seeking the same fundamental peace. And if this journey resonates with you, if these words touch something true, please subscribe to join our community of seekers and rest finders. Here's what makes tonight different from your usual evening. You don't need to achieve anything. You don't need to remember everything you hear. You don't need to work at this or try hard or concentrate intensely. In fact, the trying itself might be exactly what's been keeping you from the rest you're seeking. Tonight is about releasing effort, not adding more. It's about allowing rather than forcing, about opening rather than grasping. The teachings we'll explore together come from an ancient tradition, but they're not abstract philosophy or complicated doctrine. They're observations about how life actually works, simple truths that people have discovered again and again across centuries and cultures, truths about what creates suffering and what creates peace, about what helps and what hinders, about the nature of mind and the art of living well. You might notice as we move through these teachings that they often seem to contradict what you've been told about how to succeed in life. Modern culture teaches us to control, to plan, to force outcomes, to grip tightly to what we want and push away what we don't. These ancient teachings suggest something radically different. They suggest that the gripping itself creates suffering, that the controlling exhausts us, that there's another way entirely, one based on wisdom rather than force. So settle in now. Let your body find its natural position of comfort. You don't need to sit in any special way or hold yourself in any particular posture. Just allow yourself to be supported, whether by your bed, your chair, your cushions. Let the surface beneath you hold your weight. You've been holding yourself up all day. You can stop now. You can let go. Take a breath, slow and easy. Not a special breathing technique, just a natural breath, the way your body wants to breathe when you're not controlling it. And as you breathe, notice how the air moves in and out without any effort from you. Your body knows how to breathe. It's been doing this since the moment you were born. You can trust it. Let's begin. The paradox of effort. There's a strange truth at the heart of human experience, one that seems to contradict everything we've been taught about achievement and success. The truth is this: sometimes the harder we try, the worse things get. Sometimes effort itself is the obstacle. Sometimes the solution to our problem is not more trying, but less. Think about the last time you couldn't sleep. You probably tried to sleep, didn't you? You lay there thinking, I need to fall asleep. I must fall asleep. Why can't I fall asleep? And the more you tried, the more awake you became. The effort to sleep prevented sleep. This is the paradox we're exploring. The trying itself becomes the problem. This paradox appears everywhere in life once you start noticing it. The person who desperately wants to make friends often comes across as needy and pushes people away. The more desperately they try, the more lonely they become. The athlete who grips the bat too tightly can't swing smoothly. Their muscles lock up with tension. The singer who forces their voice strains it. The writer who tries too hard to write something brilliant creates stiff, lifeless prose. Why does this happen? Why does excessive effort backfire? Because there's a natural flow to things, a way that life wants to move. And when we impose too much force, we interrupt that flow. We create friction. We generate resistance. We make everything harder than it needs to be. Imagine trying to thread a needle with trembling, tense hands. The more anxious you are about getting the thread through the eye, the more your hands shake. The more your hands shake, the harder the task becomes. But if you relax, if you soften your grip and breathe and approach the task with a light touch, suddenly it becomes possible. The thread slips through. The same task, but approached with ease instead of force, yields completely different results. Or think about trying to remember someone's name. The harder you try to recall it, the more it hides from you. You can feel it there, just out of reach, but grasping for it pushes it further away. Then later, when you've stopped trying, when you're thinking about something else entirely, the name pops into your mind effortlessly. It was there all along. The trying was blocking it. This principle extends far beyond these simple examples. It touches the deepest aspects of how we live our lives. Many of us approach life itself with clenched fists and tensed shoulders, trying to control outcomes, trying to make things happen through sheer will and determination. We believe that if we just control enough variables, plan carefully enough, work hard enough, we can make life bend to our desires. But life doesn't work that way. Life is more like water than like stone. It flows, it moves, it changes constantly. And when we try to grip water in a clenched fist, it slips through our fingers. The tighter we squeeze, the more we lose. But if we cup our hands gently, the water rests there, available to us. There's a difference between skillful action and forced effort. Skillful action is responsive, flexible, adaptive. It works with what's actually happening rather than fighting against reality. It reads the situation and adjusts. It finds the path of least resistance. Forced effort, on the other hand, is rigid. It has a predetermined idea of how things should go and tries to make reality conform to that idea, regardless of what reality is actually offering. Think of a river finding its way to the ocean. The river doesn't force its way through mountains. It finds the gaps, the valleys, the natural pathways. It flows around obstacles. If it meets resistance in one direction, it turns and finds another way. Over time, moving with patience and persistence rather than force, the river shapes entire landscapes. Canyons are carved not by violent force, but by gentle, continuous flow. This is what the ancient Taoist teachers called Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action or non-doing. But non-doing doesn't mean doing nothing. It doesn't mean passivity or laziness or giving up. It means action without strain, movement without force, doing what needs to be done with the minimum necessary effort, with responsiveness rather than rigidity, with flow rather than fight. Consider how a tree grows. It doesn't force itself to grow.
It doesn't strain and stress and worry about whether it's growing fast enough or in the right direction. It simply grows, responding to sunlight and water and nutrients in the soil. It encounters obstacles and grows around them. If its path upward is blocked, it grows to the side until it finds an opening. It achieves tremendous things, reaching heights of 50 or 100 feet, living for decades or centuries, providing shade and oxygen and beauty. And it does all of this without effort, without trying, simply by being true to its nature and responding to what it encounters. What would it be like to live more like the tree and less like the person trying desperately to thread the needle with shaking hands? What would it be like to engage with life fully, to do what needs doing, but without the overlay of strain and force and desperate grasping? This doesn't mean we stop caring about outcomes. It doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. The tree cares about growing in some sense. It reaches towards light. It sends roots deep for water. But it doesn't add a layer of anxious struggle on top of these natural responses. It doesn't lie awake at night worrying about whether it's growing correctly. Most human suffering comes not from circumstances themselves, but from our relationship with circumstances, from our resistance to what is, from our insistence that things should be different than they are, from our exhausting attempts to control what cannot be controlled. Think about a time you were stuck in traffic. The traffic itself is just what it is, cars moving slowly or not at all. That's the circumstance. But notice what happens in your mind and body. Your shoulders tense, your jaw clenches, your mind starts a running commentary. This shouldn't be happening. I should have left earlier. Why is traffic always terrible when I'm in a hurry? This is unacceptable. You grip the steering wheel tightly. You lean forward as if that would make the cars ahead move faster. You feel your blood pressure rising. None of this changes the traffic. The cars ahead don't move any faster because you're tense and angry. In fact, your tension makes everything worse. It doesn't solve the problem, it adds a second problem on top of the first. Now you're stuck in traffic and you're suffering emotionally and physically from your resistance to being stuck in traffic. But what if you noticed the traffic and accepted it? Not liked it, not preferred it, but simply acknowledged it as the reality of this moment. Traffic is slow. This is what's happening. Fighting it won't change it. What if you softened your grip on the wheel, relaxed your shoulders, took a breath? What if you used the unexpected time to listen to music you enjoy, or to simply sit and breathe, or to notice the sky or the world around you? The circumstance would be the same. You'd still be in slow-moving traffic, but your experience would be completely different. You'd be uncomfortable, perhaps, maybe frustrated, but not suffering in the way that resistance creates. You'd have conserved your energy instead of burning it in a useless fight against reality.
This is what's meant by working with life rather than against it. Recognizing what's in our control and what isn't. Doing what we can with skill and care, then releasing what we cannot change. This is the wisdom of knowing when to act and when to allow, when to engage and when to let go. Many of us have spent years, perhaps our entire lives, believing that more control equals more security, more success, more happiness. We've been taught to manage, to organize, to optimize, to squeeze every drop of productivity out of every moment. We've learned to see life as something to be conquered rather than something to be lived. But this approach exhausts us. It creates a constant undercurrent of anxiety,
Because no matter how much we control, there's always more that's uncertain, always more that could go wrong, always another variable we haven't managed. The quest for total control is unwinnable because life is fundamentally uncertain. Change is the only constant. Impermanence is written into the fabric of reality. When we try to make the impermanent permanent, when we try to freeze the flowing river in place, when we attempt to stop change through sheer force of will, we set ourselves up for inevitable disappointment and suffering, not because we're not trying hard enough, but because we're trying to do the impossible. The alternative isn't to give up or become passive. It's to engage with life skillfully, to understand the difference between what we can influence and what we cannot, to act where action is helpful and to release where it isn't, to hold our plans and preferences lightly enough that we can adapt when circumstances change. This is a more refined way of living. It's actually more effective, not less. When you're not exhausting yourself trying to control everything, you have energy available for what actually matters. When you're not rigid in your approach, you can respond creatively to what life presents. When you're not attached to one specific outcome, you can recognize opportunities that don't fit your original plan. Think of a martial artist. A novice tenses up, makes themselves rigid, fights with pure force. An expert remains relaxed, reads their opponent's energy, redirects force rather than meeting it head-on, moves with the flow rather than against it. The expert is far more effective, not because they're using more force, but because they've learned to use less. They've discovered that relaxation and responsiveness are more powerful than tension and rigidity. This same principle applies to every area of life. The gardener who understands that plants have their own wisdom and timing, who provides good conditions, then steps back and allows growth to happen, often has a more abundant garden than the one who constantly interferes and tries to force everything. The parent who guides and supports but doesn't try to control every aspect of their child's development often raises more confident, capable children than the one who micromanages everything. The business leader who creates a clear vision but allows their team freedom to find their own path often achieves better results than the one who tries to control every detail. This isn't laziness or lack of care, it's wisdom. It's understanding that there's an intelligence in life itself, in natural processes, in other people, in circumstances that's often greater than our individual ability to plan and control. It's learning to work with that intelligence rather than always trying to overpower it with our will. As you lie here now, notice your breath. You're not making yourself breathe. You're not controlling each inhalation and exhalation. Your body is breathing you. There's a wisdom in your body that knows exactly how much oxygen you need, exactly how deeply to breathe, exactly what rhythm serves you in this moment. You can interfere with that wisdom by controlling your breath, but when you release control, the breathing continues perfectly well on its own, perhaps even better than when you were trying to manage it. This is a small example of what we're exploring. Life is breathing you. Life is living itself through you. You can try to control every aspect of it, gripping and forcing and straining, or you can learn to work with its natural flow, providing what you can provide, doing what's yours to do, then releasing what isn't yours to control. The peace you're looking for doesn't come from successfully controlling everything. That's impossible, and the attempt is exhausting. Peace comes from learning when to engage and when to let go, from understanding the difference between skillful action and forced effort, from discovering that there's a way of living that flows rather than fights, that responds rather than controls, that trusts rather than grips. This is not a small thing. For many of us, it represents a complete reorientation of how we approach life. If you've spent years believing that your job is to force outcomes, to make things happen through sheer will, to control everything possible, then learning to hold things more lightly can feel strange, even frightening at first. It can feel like giving up or being irresponsible. But it's not. It's actually a more mature way of engaging with life. It's the difference between being a rigid stick that breaks in the wind and being a flexible reed that bends and survives. It's the difference between exhausting yourself in constant battle and finding a way to move that preserves your energy and peace. As you lie here tonight, you don't need to figure all of this out. You don't need to solve the puzzle or master the teaching. Just let it touch you. Let it plant a seed. Let yourself feel what it might be like to release just a little bit of the constant effort, the constant control, the constant trying. What would it be like to trust, even for a moment, that you don't have to hold everything together through sheer force of will? Your body is already showing you the way. It's letting go of the day's tension as you lie here. It's releasing its grip. It's allowing rest to happen. You're not making yourself rest, you're allowing it. This is the wisdom we're exploring, applied to the simple, essential act of sleep. The wisdom of allowing rather than forcing, of trusting rather than controlling, of working with the natural flow rather than fighting against it.
The architecture of awareness. Let's turn our attention now to something you've been doing every moment of your life, yet rarely notice directly. Something so fundamental that it's easy to overlook, like the air you breathe or the ground you walk on. We're going to explore the nature of your own awareness, the space in which all your experiences happen. Most people believe they are their thoughts. When a thought appears in their mind, they immediately identify with it. I am thinking this. This is my thought. I believe this. The thought and the thinker seem to be one and the same thing. But is this actually true? Let's investigate together. Right now, as you listen to these words, thoughts are probably moving through your mind. Maybe you're thinking about something I just said. Maybe you're thinking about tomorrow. Maybe you're noticing how your body feels or what sounds you can hear in your environment. These thoughts are appearing. That's undeniable. But who or what is aware that these thoughts are appearing? There's something in you that notices thoughts, something that observes them come and go. This observing awareness is different from the thoughts themselves. Think about it this way. If you can observe your thoughts, you cannot be your thoughts. The observer and the observed are not the same thing. You can watch the sky, but you are not the sky. You can watch clouds pass through the sky, but you are not the clouds. In the same way, you can watch thoughts pass through your mind, but you are not the thoughts. This might seem like a subtle distinction, but it changes everything. When you identify completely with your thoughts, you're at their mercy. If an anxious thought appears, you become anxious. If an angry thought appears, you become angry. You're tossed around by every mental movement, like a boat on stormy seas with no anchor. But when you recognize yourself as the awareness that observes thoughts, you have space, you have stability. Thoughts can come and go, storms of thinking can blow through, but the awareness that watches them remains unchanged.
like the ocean depths beneath surface waves, like the sky beyond passing clouds. Let's try something simple together. Notice that you're hearing these words right now. Someone is aware that hearing is happening. Now notice any physical sensations in your body. Maybe the feeling of lying down, or the temperature of the air on your skin, or tension somewhere in your muscles. Someone is aware of these sensations. Now, notice if there are any thoughts in your mind. Maybe a thought about what you're doing, or what you need to do tomorrow, or a judgment about this exercise. Someone is aware of those thoughts. That someone, that awareness, is always present. It's present when you're hearing, when you're feeling sensations, when you're thinking thoughts. It's the constant factor in all your varied experiences. It's what you are beneath all the changing contents of your consciousness. This awareness has a particular quality. It doesn't judge, it doesn't resist, it doesn't cling. It simply witnesses. It's like a mirror that reflects everything that appears before it without being changed by what it reflects. A mirror can reflect beautiful things or ugly things, pleasant things or unpleasant things, but the mirror itself remains the same. It doesn't hold on to the beautiful images or push away the ugly ones. It simply reflects. Your awareness is like this. It can witness pleasant experiences or unpleasant experiences, comfortable thoughts or uncomfortable thoughts, but the awareness itself remains unchanged. It doesn't become contaminated by what it witnesses. It remains clear, spacious, and peaceful, regardless of what passes through it. Most of us have never been taught to recognize this awareness. We've been taught to focus on the contents of consciousness, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing. We've learned to identify with these contents. I am a person who thinks this way, who feels these emotions, who has this personality, who likes these things and dislikes those things. We build an entire identity out of the passing contents of our mind. But all of these contents are temporary. Thoughts come and go, emotions rise and fall. Even your personality shifts over time. If you are entirely identified with these changing phenomena, who are you when they change? When the thought you were identified with disappears, do you disappear? When the emotion you were caught up in fades, do you fade? Obviously not. Something remains. That something is awareness itself.
When people speak about having a busy mind, what they usually mean is that there are many thoughts appearing in their awareness. The thoughts are moving quickly, crowding together, demanding attention. But notice, even when your mind is very busy, even when thoughts are rushing through at high speed, the awareness that notices my mind is busy is itself calm. It's like standing on the shore watching waves crash and churn. The waves are turbulent, but you, standing on shore, are still. This is a profound discovery. You don't have to make your thoughts stop in order to find peace. You don't have to empty your mind or achieve some special state of blank consciousness. You simply have to recognize what you already are, the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear, the space in which all mental activity happens. Think of your mind as the sky. Clouds pass through the sky. Sometimes there are many clouds, thick and dark, filling the sky from horizon to horizon. Sometimes there are few clouds, just wisps of white against blue. Sometimes the sky seems completely clear. But the sky itself is unchanged by the clouds. It doesn't become a cloudy sky or a clear sky. It remains the sky,
spacious and open, allowing all weather to pass through it. Your awareness is like the sky. Thoughts are like clouds. Sometimes there are many thoughts. Sometimes there are few. Sometimes your mind seems completely quiet, but the awareness itself is unchanged. It remains spacious and open, allowing all mental weather to pass through it. When you understand this, you stop being so bothered by thoughts. You stop thinking that something is wrong when thoughts appear. You stop fighting with your own mind, trying desperately to make it quiet. You recognize that thoughts are just what minds do, like waves are what oceans do, like clouds are what skies hold. It's natural. It's not a problem. It only becomes a problem when you identify completely with the thoughts, when you believe you are the clouds rather than the sky. Let's go deeper into this exploration. Not only are you not your thoughts, you're also not your emotions. Emotions are like weather patterns in the sky of awareness. They blow through. Sometimes the weather is pleasant, warmth, sunshine, gentle breezes. Sometimes it's unpleasant, cold, storms, harsh winds. But the sky holds all of it without being damaged or changed. When sadness arises in you, there's an awareness that knows sadness is present. When joy arises, there's an awareness that knows joy is present. This awareness is neither sad nor joyful. It's simply aware. It's the neutral, unchanging witness to all your changing emotional states. Most people don't distinguish between feeling an emotion and being that emotion. If they feel sad, they say, "I am sad." If they feel angry, they say, "I am angry." But this is imprecise language that creates confusion. More accurately, you might say, "Sadness is present in my awareness," or "Anger is arising right now." These phrasings maintain the distinction between you, the awareness, and the emotion, something appearing in that awareness. This distinction is not just semantic, it's practical and liberating. When you identify as the emotion, you're lost in it. You're swept away by it. You become it completely. But when you recognize yourself as the awareness witnessing the emotion, you have space around it. You can feel it fully without being overwhelmed by it. You can acknowledge it without being controlled by it. Imagine you're watching a sad movie. The movie is genuinely moving. There's real sadness in the story. You might even cry, but you know you're watching a movie. You know you're sitting safely in a theater or on your couch. You're aware of the sadness in the story, but you're not lost in it. You maintain a perspective that allows you to experience the emotion without being destroyed by it. This is how it can be with your own emotions when you recognize yourself as awareness rather than identifying completely with the emotional content. You can feel sadness without believing, "I am a sad person." You can experience anger without believing, "I am an angry person." The emotions are real. You're not denying them or suppressing them, but you're also not drowning in them because you found the shore, the solid ground of awareness that remains stable while emotional waves crash and recede.
The same is true for physical sensations. Pain in your body is not who you are. It's something appearing in your awareness. This doesn't make the pain less real, but it changes your relationship with it. Instead of "I am in pain," which creates a tight identification with the suffering, you might recognize there is pain being experienced. There's a subtle but significant difference. One creates a sense of being trapped in pain with no escape. The other acknowledges pain while maintaining a larger perspective that includes but is not limited to the pain.
People who practice recognizing themselves as awareness often report that difficult experiences become more manageable, not because the experiences themselves change, but because their relationship with the experiences changes. They find a kind of inner spaciousness that can hold difficulty without being crushed by it. Think of a glass of water with some dirt stirred into it. When you shake the glass, the water becomes cloudy, murky, impossible to see through. But if you set the glass down and leave it alone, the dirt gradually settles to the bottom. The water clears. It becomes transparent again. The dirt is still there at the bottom of the glass, but the water itself is clear. Your awareness is like the water. Thoughts and emotions are like the dirt. When you're stirring everything up, when you're caught up in the contents of your mind, everything seems cloudy and confused. But when you simply rest in awareness, when you stop stirring, things settle. Clarity emerges naturally. You can see through to the transparent, spacious nature of awareness itself. This settling doesn't require effort. In fact, effort prevents it. It's more like stopping effort, stopping the constant stirring, and allowing clarity to emerge on its own. This is why meditation practices often emphasize simply sitting, simply being present, simply observing without interfering. The interference is what creates the cloudiness. The stopping of interference allows natural clarity. Some people worry that if they stop identifying with their thoughts and emotions, they'll become cold or detached or uncaring. But this is a misunderstanding. Recognizing yourself as awareness doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you feel without being overwhelmed. It doesn't mean you stop thinking. It means you think without being tyrannized by thought. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care without drowning in emotional reactivity. In fact, when you're not completely identified with your own emotional content, you often become more capable of genuine compassion for others. You can feel their suffering without being destroyed by it. You can remain present with them in their difficulty without needing to fix it or make it go away or protect yourself from it. You have room in your awareness for both your experience and theirs. This spacious awareness is your natural state. It's not something you need to create or achieve. It's what you already are beneath all the identification with thoughts, emotions, sensations, and stories. Every meditation practice, every contemplative tradition, every wisdom teaching is ultimately pointing back to this simple recognition. You are not the changing contents of your consciousness. You are the consciousness itself. Children seem to have easier access to this state. Watch a young child at play. They become completely absorbed in what they're doing. They're not thinking about themselves or monitoring their experience. They're not judging whether what they're feeling is good or bad. They're simply present, simply aware, simply here. Then something captures their attention and they shift completely to that. There's a fluidity, a naturalness, an ease. As we grow older, we lose some of this fluidity. We build up layers of self-concept, of beliefs about who we are, of identification with our thoughts and our stories. We learn to narrate our experience constantly, to comment on everything, to analyze and judge and interpret. This narration creates a kind of film between us and direct experience. We're no longer simply present. We're always one step removed, watching ourselves, thinking about our experience rather than simply having it. But that childlike capacity for simple, direct awareness never truly leaves us. It's still here, waiting underneath all the layers we've added. Every moment of absorbed attention, every moment when you forget yourself completely in what you're doing, every moment of being present without self-consciousness, you're touching this natural awareness. It's not exotic or distant. It's the most ordinary, simple thing in the world. It's just being here now, aware. As you lie here resting, you can notice this awareness. You don't have to create it, you don't have to achieve it. You simply recognize what's already happening. There's hearing, there's feeling, there's thinking perhaps, and there's an awareness of all of it. That awareness is what you are. That awareness is your home, your refuge, the one constant in all your changing experience. When you rest in this awareness, even for a moment, something relaxes. The constant effort to manage your experience eases. The need to control thoughts or fix emotions or make everything perfect releases. You discover that you can simply be, simply rest in the spacious awareness that you already are, and this is enough, more than enough. It's the peace you've been seeking in all the wrong places.
The wisdom of seasons. The natural world teaches us profound lessons about change, timing, and acceptance if we're willing to observe and learn. One of the most powerful lessons comes from watching the seasons turn. Spring becomes summer, becomes autumn, becomes winter, becomes spring again in an endless, reliable cycle. Each season has its own character, its own beauty, its own gifts, and each season inevitably gives way to the next. No season lasts forever. The warmth of summer eventually cools. The cold of winter eventually warms. The bloom of spring eventually fades. The harvest of autumn eventually ends. This is not a flaw in the design. This is the design. Impermanence is not a bug in the system. It's a feature. It's how life works. Yet how often do we resist this truth? How often do we want the good times to last forever and the difficult times to end immediately? How often do we find ourselves in autumn wishing it were still summer, or in winter longing for spring? How often do we fight against the season we're actually in, trying to force a different season into being through sheer will or denial? This resistance creates unnecessary suffering. It's like standing in snow in December, shivering and miserable, insisting that this shouldn't be winter, that it should still be summer, that cold and snow are unacceptable. The resistance doesn't change the weather. It just adds mental and emotional suffering to the physical experience of cold. But when we accept the season we're in, when we work with it rather than against it, something shifts. Winter is no longer our enemy. It's simply winter. It has its own beauty if we're willing to see it. The stark elegance of bare trees against gray sky, the quiet that comes with snow, the coziness of being inside while cold reigns outside. We can appreciate these gifts instead of spending all our energy wishing for something else. This wisdom about seasons applies not just to literal weather, but to the seasons of our lives. We have seasons of growth and seasons of rest, seasons of abundance and seasons of scarcity, seasons of expansion and seasons of contraction, seasons of connection and seasons of solitude, seasons of action and seasons of reflection. Each season, whether we like it or not, brings certain conditions. A season of growth might bring excitement and opportunity, but also demands energy and attention. A season of rest might bring needed recovery, but also feelings of being stuck or unproductive. A season of abundance might bring resources and possibilities, but also choices and responsibility. A season of scarcity might bring difficulty and limitation, but also clarity about what truly matters. The wisdom is not in trying to make every season spring when everything is blooming and fresh and full of promise.
The wisdom is in recognizing what season you're actually in and working with its specific conditions, in understanding that each season, no matter how challenging, has something to teach you, some gift to offer you if you're willing to receive it. Think about actual farming for a moment. A farmer doesn't try to harvest in spring or plant in winter. A farmer works with the seasons, not against them. In spring, they prepare soil and plant seeds. In summer, they tend growing plants, watering and weeding. In autumn, they harvest what has matured. In winter, they rest and plan and repair tools. Each activity is appropriate to its season. What would happen if a farmer insisted on harvesting in spring because they're impatient and don't want to wait until autumn? They would harvest nothing, or at best immature plants that provide little nourishment. What if they tried to plant in winter because they're worried about running out of time? The seeds would freeze and die. The farmer who fights against the seasons fails. The farmer who works with the seasons succeeds. Your life follows similar patterns. There are times when it's appropriate to plant new things, to start new projects, begin new relationships, learn new skills. These are seasons of initiation and fresh beginning. There are times when it's appropriate to tend what you've planted, to nurture your projects, deepen your relationships, practice your skills. These are seasons of development and growth. There are times to harvest, to complete projects, celebrate accomplishments, gather the fruits of your efforts. These are seasons of fruition and abundance. And there are times to rest, to recover, reflect, integrate what you've learned, prepare for the next cycle. These are seasons of restoration and renewal. Problems arise when we try to force the wrong activity in the wrong season. When we push ourselves to produce and accomplish during a season that calls for rest and recovery, we exhaust ourselves and the quality of our work suffers. When we rest and withdraw during a season that calls for engagement and effort, we miss opportunities and fail to develop our potential. When we cling to summer's warmth as autumn arrives, refusing to let go of what's ending, we create suffering for ourselves. The key is learning to recognize what season you're actually in. This requires honest self-awareness. It requires paying attention to what's happening in your life, in your body, in your energy levels, in your circumstances. It requires letting go of how you think things should be and seeing clearly how they actually are. Some seasons announce themselves obviously: a major life change, a loss, an illness, a new beginning. These create clear seasonal shifts that are hard to miss, but many seasonal changes are more subtle. You might notice that work that usually energizes you now feels exhausting, or that you're thinking more about the past, reviewing and integrating experiences, or that you feel drawn to solitude when usually you prefer company. These might be signs of a seasonal shift, a change in what's appropriate and needed.
Our culture tends to value only certain seasons. We celebrate spring and summer, growth, expansion, productivity, achievement, yang energy. We're suspicious of autumn and winter, letting go, contraction, rest, reflection, yin energy. We treat natural periods of decrease or rest as failures, as problems to be solved, as weaknesses to be overcome. But this bias creates enormous suffering. It means we're constantly fighting against half of the natural cycle. We're trying to stay in perpetual summer, in constant growth and production, in endless yang expansion. This is exhausting and ultimately impossible. Everything in nature includes both growth and decay, both expansion and contraction, both day and night, both summer and winter. Trying to have only one without the other is trying to break the fundamental laws of how life works. Imagine a tree that tried to stay in constant bloom, refusing ever to let its flowers fall, insisting on keeping every leaf green year-round. The tree would exhaust itself. It would be unable to produce fruit or seeds because it refused to let the flowers transform. It would be unable to survive winter because it refused to enter dormancy. Its refusal to accept the full cycle of the seasons would destroy it. Yet this is often how we try to live. We want constant growth, constant productivity, constant bloom. We resist natural periods of letting go, of rest, of seeming dormancy. We judge ourselves as failing when we're not producing, not expanding, not achieving. We've forgotten that rest is productive in its own way, that letting go creates space for new growth, that winter's dormancy is what makes spring's bloom possible. Understanding the seasons helps us be more compassionate with ourselves. When you're in a winter season, when things feel hard and dark and contracted, you can recognize this as a natural part of the cycle rather than a personal failure. You can ask, what does winter require? What is this season teaching me? Instead of, why am I failing? What's wrong with me? Winter seasons in life, the difficult times, often bring unexpected gifts. They strip away what's inessential. They show us what really matters. They develop strength and resilience we didn't know we had. They create the conditions for transformation that wouldn't happen during comfortable times. Just as plants need winter's cold to properly set fruit for the next year, we sometimes need difficulty to develop capacities that ease cannot build. This doesn't mean we should seek out difficulty or romanticize suffering. It means that when difficult seasons come, as they inevitably do, we can meet them with awareness rather than pure resistance. We can ask what they have to teach us. We can trust that, like all seasons, this too will pass. Winter always eventually gives way to spring, not because we forced it, not because we demanded it, but because that's the nature of the cycle. One of the most powerful practices is learning to recognize and appreciate the season you're in right now. Instead of wishing you were in a different season, asking yourself, what is this season offering me? What is appropriate to this time? What wants to happen naturally here? If you're in a season of growth, of expansion, of high energy and many opportunities, you might lean into that. Take the actions that are available, build what wants to be built, but also remember that this season won't last forever. Enjoy it fully precisely because it's temporary. Store up resources for the leaner seasons that will eventually come. If you're in a season of harvest, of completion, of gathering the fruits of past efforts, you might focus on finishing what you've started, on celebrating accomplishments, on sharing what you've created, on feeling gratitude for the abundance present, while also remembering that harvest time ends and rest time follows. If you're in a season of autumn, of letting go, of things ending or changing or falling away, you might practice release, allowing what needs to end, making space for what's next by letting go of what was, trusting that the falling away is necessary, that it's making room for new growth even if you can't see it yet. If you're in a season of winter, of rest, of darkness, of apparent inactivity, you might honor the need for restoration. You might resist the pressure to be productive and instead allow deep recovery. You might go inward, reflect, integrate, prepare, trusting that spring will come,
that growth will return, but that winter's rest is necessary for that growth to be healthy and sustainable. The seasons teach us that impermanence is not our enemy. Change is not a problem to be solved. The ending of things is not a tragedy, but a natural part of the cycle that makes room for new beginnings. When we fight against this truth, we suffer. When we accept it and work with it, we find a kind of ease and flow that fighting can never provide. As you rest here now, you might consider, what season am I in? Not what season I wish I were in, not what season I think I should be in, but what season is actually here. Can I accept this season and work with it? Can I trust that it will change in its own time, that the wheel will turn, that new seasons will come? Can I let go of fighting with reality and instead discover what this particular moment, this particular season is offering me?
The art of holding. There's a way of relating to the things and people and experiences in our lives that creates suffering, and there's a way that creates freedom. The difference between these two ways is subtle but profound. It's the difference between grasping and receiving, between possessing and appreciating, between closed fists and open hands. Think about holding sand. If you cup your hands gently, the sand rests there. You can look at it, feel its texture, appreciate it. It's available to you. But if you close your fists tightly around the sand, trying to hold it through force, it slips through your fingers. The tighter you grip, the more you lose. This is true not just for sand, but for virtually everything in life. We've been taught that holding on tightly is strength, that letting go is weakness. We've learned to accumulate and protect and control. We've built identities around what we own, what we've achieved, what we have. And then we spend enormous energy trying to maintain and protect all of it, trying to keep everything exactly as it is, fighting against the natural flow of change. But everything changes. Everything is temporary. The body ages. Relationships evolve. Possessions wear out or get lost. Achievements become history. The past is gone. The future is uncertain. The only thing that's actually real is this present moment. And in this present moment, you can either be grasping at what's already gone or what hasn't arrived yet, or you can be appreciating what's actually here. When you release grasping, you don't lose the capacity to care or to engage or to work toward goals. You actually become more effective because you're not wasting energy on the impossible task of making impermanent things permanent. You're working with reality rather than fighting against it. Think about a master craftsperson. They care deeply about their work. They give it their full attention and skill. But they don't grip the outcome so tightly that they can't adapt when things don't go as planned. If a piece of wood has an unexpected grain that changes the design, they work with it rather than fighting against it. If a project doesn't turn out exactly as envisioned, they appreciate what it became rather than mourning what it wasn't. This lightness of holding doesn't diminish their skill or care, it enhances it. It allows them to be responsive, creative, adaptive. It frees them from the paralysis that comes from grasping at a perfect outcome. They can work skillfully precisely because they're not strangling the work with desperate control.
The same applies to how we hold our own identity. Most people grip tightly to their self-concept. I am this kind of person. I am not that kind of person. I must always be consistent with who I believe myself to be. This grasping creates rigidity. It prevents growth and change. It creates suffering when circumstances call for us to be different than our fixed self-concept allows. But what if you held your own identity more lightly? What if you recognized that you're not a fixed thing, but a process, constantly changing, constantly evolving? You're not the same person you were 10 years ago, or even yesterday. Cells in your body have been replaced. Thoughts and beliefs have shifted. Experiences have changed you. Why pretend to be a static, unchanging entity when the reality is that you're a flowing, dynamic process? Holding identity lightly doesn't mean you have no sense of self or values. It means you're not rigidly attached to a particular story about who you must be. You can adapt and grow and change without experiencing it as a loss of self. You can embrace new understanding without feeling like you're betraying your past self. You can hold your values while also remaining open to deepening or refining them. This lightness creates freedom, freedom to grow, freedom to change, freedom to respond to life as it actually is rather than as your rigid self-concept says it should be. Freedom to be surprised by yourself, to discover capacities you didn't know you had, to become someone you couldn't have predicted. One of the most liberating discoveries is that you can care deeply without grasping desperately. You can love without possessing. You can appreciate without controlling. You can engage fully without demanding specific outcomes. You can hold your life, your relationships, your possessions, your very self with open hands rather than closed fists. This is not easy, especially at first. We've been trained to grasp. We've been taught that letting go means not caring. We've learned to equate love with possession, success with control, security with rigidity. Unlearning these patterns takes time and practice. But every moment offers an opportunity to practice. Right now, notice how you're holding this experience. Are you grasping at it, trying to get something from it, demanding that it provide you with answers or relief or solutions? Or can you simply receive it, appreciate what it offers, let it be what it is without needing it to be something else? Notice how you hold your breath. Are you controlling it, forcing it, trying to breathe in some special way? Or can you let your body breathe itself, trusting the wisdom that's deeper than your conscious control? Notice how you hold your thoughts. Are you grasping at some thoughts and pushing away others, creating tension in your mind? Or can you let thoughts come and go, watching them move through the space of awareness without needing to grip them or reject them? Notice how you hold your body. Are you tensing and gripping, holding yourself rigid? Or can you soften, relax, let your body be supported by what's beneath it without having to hold yourself up through constant muscular tension? These small moments of practicing lighter holding accumulate. They teach you in your body, not just your mind, what it feels like to release grasping. And as you practice with small things, breathing, thoughts, physical tension, you develop the capacity to hold larger things more lightly too: relationships, possessions, identity, even life itself. The ultimate freedom is being able to hold everything in your life with appreciation rather than grasping, to engage fully with the gift of being alive without demanding that life be different than it is, to love deeply without needing to possess what you love, to create and build and work without being enslaved to outcomes, to have and enjoy things without making your peace dependent on keeping them. This is the wisdom of open hands, of receiving rather than grasping, of dancing with life rather than trying to wrestle it into submission, of appreciating each moment for what it offers rather than demanding it provide what you think you need. As you rest here, feel into the possibility of releasing just a little bit of the grasping you've been holding. You don't have to figure out how to do this perfectly or master it completely. Just feel what it might be like to let your hands open a bit, to soften your grip, to trust that you can care without controlling, love without possessing, live without constantly demanding that things be other than they are. What a relief it would be to stop gripping so tightly. What freedom you might discover in learning to hold life with open hands.
The geography of suffering. There's an important distinction to understand, one that can transform your relationship with difficult experiences. The distinction is between pain and suffering. These words are often used interchangeably, but they point to different things. Understanding the difference can change your life. Pain is what life brings, a body that experiences physical hurt, a heart that knows loss, a mind that encounters disappointment. These are part of being human. They're unavoidable. As long as you're alive, you'll experience pain in various forms. This is not a flaw in your existence. It's not punishment. It's simply part of the package of being a living, feeling being in an impermanent world, where things change and loss happens and bodies are vulnerable. Suffering, on the other hand, is what we add to pain through our resistance to it. Suffering is pain multiplied by resistance. It's what happens when we fight against what's already happening, when we insist that things shouldn't be as they are, when we argue with reality. Think of it this way. Imagine you stub your toe. There's pain, sharp, immediate physical pain. That's unavoidable. The pain receptors fire. The nerves send signals to your brain. You feel hurt. But then watch what the mind does. It might add, "I'm such an idiot. Why wasn't I paying attention? This ruins everything. Now I can't go to the gym. This shouldn't have happened. Why do these things always happen to me?" Notice what just happened. The physical pain might last for a few minutes, but the mental suffering, the story and resistance around the pain can last much longer, hours even. The physical hurt was brief and specific. The mental suffering is prolonged and diffuse, and it was entirely self-created, added on top of the unavoidable pain through the mind's resistance and storytelling. This pattern repeats in countless situations. Something painful happens. That's the first arrow. Then we shoot ourselves with a second arrow of resistance, complaint, story, and self-recrimination. The second arrow is optional. It's what we add. It's the suffering on top of the pain. Understanding this distinction doesn't make pain disappear. It doesn't make difficult situations pleasant, but it can dramatically reduce the amount you suffer, because you're not adding unnecessary layers of mental and emotional anguish on top of unavoidable difficulty. Let's explore how this works in more detail. Pain and difficulty are part of life's terrain. You can't go through life without encountering obstacles, losses, disappointments,
physical hurt, emotional wounds. No one, no matter how privileged or fortunate, escapes this entirely. The Buddha called this the first noble truth: suffering exists, or more precisely, dukkha exists. Dukkha is a Pali word that means unsatisfactoriness, difficulty, the quality of things being not quite right. But, and this is crucial, the Buddha didn't stop there. He didn't say, life is suffering and there's nothing you can do about it. He said, suffering exists, and there's a cause, and there's an end to it, and there's a path to that end. He mapped the geography of suffering so we could navigate it more skillfully. The cause of suffering, according to this map, is tanha, craving, grasping, clinging, the desperate wanting of things to be different than they are, the refusal to accept reality as it is, the constant push-pull of trying to get what we want and avoid what we don't want. This is what transforms ordinary pain into extraordinary suffering.
Think about physical pain for a moment. Research has shown something fascinating. The experience of pain is significantly influenced by our mental attitude toward it. Two people with the same physical injury can have vastly different experiences depending on their relationship with the pain. One person resists the pain intensely. They tense up around it, trying to make it go away through sheer force of will. They catastrophize about it. They tell themselves stories about how terrible it is, how they can't stand it, how it will never end, how it means something awful about their body or their future. They become angry at the pain, at their body for experiencing it, at whatever caused it. This resistance creates muscular tension that often makes the pain worse. It creates mental distress that compounds the physical experience. The pain becomes mixed with fear, anger, frustration, hopelessness. Another person experiences the same physical sensation but relates to it differently. They acknowledge the pain without adding the layer of resistance. They notice it with curiosity. Where exactly is it located? What is its quality? Is it sharp or dull, constant or throbbing, burning or aching? They breathe into it rather than tensing against it. They relax around it as much as possible. They don't tell themselves terrible stories about what it means. They simply feel it as a sensation. Unpleasant, yes, but just a sensation nonetheless. Same physical pain, dramatically different experience. The difference is the layer of resistance, the second arrow, the suffering added to pain. This applies to emotional pain as well. Loss happens. Someone dies. A relationship ends. A job is lost. A dream doesn't work out. There's genuine pain in these experiences: grief, disappointment, sorrow. This is real and valid and unavoidable. But then notice what often gets added on top. This shouldn't have happened. Life is unfair. I can't handle this. I'll never recover. I should have done something different. If only things had gone another way. Why me? This is too much. All of this is resistance. It's the mind fighting with what has already happened. And this fighting creates suffering on top of the already painful situation. The alternative is not to pretend the pain doesn't exist, or to suppress feelings, or to put on a happy face. The alternative is acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean liking what happened. It doesn't mean thinking it's good or fine or okay. It means acknowledging what's true without adding layers of resistance. This happened. I don't like it. It hurts, and it happened. That's acceptance. It's seeing reality clearly.
It's allowing your feelings to be what they are, without adding judgment or resistance or demands that things be different. It's the difference between "I feel sad" and "I feel sad and this shouldn't be happening and I can't bear this and it's terrible and I'm a mess and..." Do you see how the second version multiplies suffering? When you accept what is, you're not giving up or becoming passive. You're actually freeing up energy that was being spent on useless resistance. That energy can then go toward skillful response, toward doing what can actually be done, toward healing or adaptation or growth or whatever the situation calls for. Resistance keeps you stuck. It's like spinning your wheels in mud, lots of motion and noise, but no actual movement. Acceptance is like stopping the spinning, getting out of the car, assessing the situation clearly, and figuring out the most skillful way forward. Maybe you need to push, maybe you need to wait for help, maybe you need to walk. But you can only make that decision when you accept the reality that you're stuck, rather than spending all your energy insisting that you shouldn't be stuck. One of the most common forms of resistance is the thought, "This shouldn't be happening." Listen for this thought in your own mind. It appears constantly in various forms. This shouldn't have happened. Things shouldn't be this way. This is wrong. This is unfair. This is unacceptable. Every version is resistance to reality. And here's the thing, the thought is always false. If something is happening, it should be happening because it is happening. The universe doesn't make mistakes. Reality is what it is. Your preference that it be different doesn't change what's real. It only creates suffering for you. This doesn't mean you can't work to change things. It doesn't mean you have to like what's happening or passively accept harm. It means you first acknowledge reality clearly. This is what's happening right now. From that clear seeing, you can take wise action. You can work for change. But the action comes from acceptance of what is, not from resistance to it.
Think about someone working for social justice. They see inequality and suffering in the world. They could respond with pure resistance, raging against how terrible everything is, overwhelmed by how things shouldn't be this way, paralyzed by the injustice of it all. This creates a lot of suffering for them and doesn't necessarily lead to effective action. Or they could respond with acceptance and action. Yes, this inequality exists. I don't like it. It causes harm. And from this clear seeing of what is, I will work skillfully to change it. This acceptance doesn't diminish their care or commitment. It actually enhances their effectiveness because they're not wasting energy on resistance. They're putting it all toward constructive action. The same principle applies to your personal difficulties. Accepting them doesn't mean you don't work to address them. It means you start from clear seeing rather than from fight. And that makes your response more effective. There's a practice in mindfulness traditions of meeting pain with curiosity rather than resistance. When something hurts, instead of immediately tensing against it and trying to make it go away, you turn toward it with gentle investigation. What exactly is this sensation? Where is it? Does it have edges or does it diffuse? Does it move or stay still? Is it one sensation or many? What happens to it when I breathe? This practice doesn't make pain pleasant, but it changes your relationship with pain. You're no longer fighting it, you're exploring it. And this subtle shift from fight to curiosity often reduces the suffering dramatically. The pain is still there, but the layer of fear and resistance around it softens. You can apply this same approach to emotional pain. When difficult emotions arise, instead of immediately trying to suppress them or distract from them or get rid of them, you can turn toward them with curiosity. What does this sadness actually feel like? Where do I feel it in my body? What thoughts accompany it? What happens if I simply allow it to be here without trying to fix it or make it go away? This is the practice of acceptance, not passive resignation, but active allowing, making space for what's actually here rather than exhausting yourself fighting against it. And in that space, something often shifts, not because you were trying to make it shift, but because you stopped creating the tension that was keeping it locked in place. One more important aspect of this: accepting external reality is often easier than accepting internal reality. It's one thing to accept that it's raining when you wanted sunshine. It's another thing entirely to accept your own thoughts and feelings when they're uncomfortable or unwanted. Many people believe they should be able to control their internal experience. I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't think these thoughts. I shouldn't be anxious, sad, or angry. This creates immense suffering. You're not only experiencing difficult thoughts or emotions, you're also judging yourself for having them, creating a second layer of difficulty. But thoughts and emotions arise on their own. You don't choose them. They appear in your consciousness, much like weather appears in the sky. You can't control whether a sad thought or an anxious feeling arises. That's not in your direct control. What is in your control is your response to these internal experiences. You can resist them, fight them, judge yourself for having them, and create suffering. Or you can accept them, allow them space, recognize they're temporary visitors passing through, and free yourself from the extra layer of struggle. This is the heart of the matter. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Not completely optional. You will sometimes suffer, but much of it is optional. Much of it is self-created through resistance. And that's actually good news, because it means you have agency. You can't always control what happens to you, or even what arises in your own mind and body, but you can learn to change your relationship with these experiences. You can learn to meet them with acceptance rather than resistance. And that changes everything.
The sound of simplicity.
Most of the complexity in life is added by the thinking mind. Reality itself is remarkably simple and direct. It's just this moment, just this breath, just these sensations and sounds and sights. But the mind layers interpretation, judgment, story, memory, anticipation, and commentary over top of simple experience. And then we live in that mental layer, mistaking it for reality, missing the actual aliveness that's here beneath all the thinking. Right now, as you rest here, there are sounds. Maybe you hear silence, or maybe there's traffic, or perhaps a fan or heater, or voices in another room, or wind outside, or your own breathing. These sounds are just happening. They're simple, direct, immediate. They're just vibrations in air, creating waves that reach your ear. No story needed, no interpretation required, just hearing happening. But notice what the mind does. It immediately categorizes. That's a car. That's annoying. That shouldn't be so loud. Why can't it be quiet? Or, that's silence. This is nice. I hope it stays this way. The mind takes simple auditory experience and wraps it in thought. And then you're no longer experiencing the actual sound. You're experiencing your thoughts about the sound. This same process happens with every aspect of experience. You feel a sensation in your body, and before you've really felt it fully, the mind has labeled it, judged it, created a story about it. You see something, and before you've really seen it, the mind has categorized it, compared it to other things, decided whether you like it. Layer upon layer of mental activity covering over the simplicity of direct experience. And we spend most of our lives lost in these layers, rarely touching the actual reality underneath. Zen practice is, in many ways, about removing these layers, about coming back to direct experience, about recognizing the simplicity that's here before mind adds all its commentary. Not because thinking is bad or wrong, but because we've become so lost in thinking that we've forgotten how to simply be present to what is. Think about eating. When you eat mindlessly, which is how most people eat most of the time, you're barely tasting the food. You're thinking about something else, planning the afternoon, reviewing the morning, worrying about something. Your mouth is chewing and swallowing, but you're not really there. You finish a meal and barely remember eating it. But what if you ate with full attention? Just one bite, fully experienced. You see the food, notice its colors and shapes. You smell it. You put it in your mouth and feel its texture on your tongue. You notice its temperature. You begin to chew and taste emerges, complex flavors developing and changing. You notice the urge to swallow, the movement of swallowing, the sensation as food travels down. All of this happens in seconds, but each moment is rich with direct experience. No thinking required, just tasting, seeing, smelling, feeling. Simple, direct, immediate. And somehow this simple attention transforms the ordinary act of eating into something alive and vivid. The same is true for any activity. Walking, when done with full attention, becomes remarkable. You feel each foot lifting, moving through air, touching down. You feel your weight shifting, your balance adjusting. You notice the movement of your legs, the swing of your arms, the rhythmic nature of the stride. All of this happening by itself, your body knowing how to walk without your mind needing to direct every movement.
Usually, walking is just a way to get somewhere. You're thinking about your destination or about something else entirely. The walking itself is invisible, automatic, unnoticed. But when you bring attention to it, when you return to the direct experience of walking, it becomes something different. Not special or mystical, just fully experienced. And that full experience has a quality of aliveness that thinking about something else while walking can never provide. This is what's meant by returning to simplicity. Not simplifying your life by getting rid of everything, though that might help, but simplifying your relationship to experience by removing the layers of thought and returning to what's actually happening. Children do this naturally. Watch a small child examining a leaf or a stone. They look at it with complete attention. They turn it over, feel its texture, maybe smell it or taste it.
They're fully engaged with direct experience, not thinking about the object, just experiencing it. There's a quality of wonder and freshness in this way of being. As we grow older, we lose this capacity. We learn to think about everything instead of experiencing it. We learn to categorize and label and judge. We learn to live in our heads, in our concepts and stories and interpretations. We become sophisticated, educated, knowledgeable, and we lose the simple capacity to be directly present to what is. But this capacity never truly disappears. It's available right now. It's always available. It's just covered over by habitual thinking, and the covering can be set aside, at least temporarily, by bringing attention back to direct experience. The breath is an anchor here. You're always breathing. The breath is always happening in the present moment. You can't breathe in the past or future. You can only breathe right now. So when you attend to breathing, you're automatically in the present moment. You're touching direct experience. Not controlling the breath, not making it special, just noticing it. The sensation of air moving in and out of your nostrils, cool as it enters, warm as it exits, or the feeling of your chest or belly rising and falling, or the sound of breathing. Simple, direct sensation, no story needed, just breathing noticed. When you find yourself lost in thought, which you will because that's what minds do, you can gently return attention to the breath, to the body, to sounds, to direct experience. Not as a failure that you were thinking, but as a practice of returning, coming back, again and again. Each return is the practice. This isn't about achieving some special state. It's not about emptying your mind or stopping thoughts or having some profound experience. It's much simpler than that. It's just being present to what's actually happening rather than lost in thought about what's happening.
There's a famous Zen saying, "When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you sit, just sit." Simple instructions, but surprisingly difficult because the mind constantly wants to add something, to be somewhere else, to think about something, to complicate what's simple. Just eating means you're fully present with eating, not watching TV, not reading, not planning, not reviewing, just the experience of eating. Just walking means attention is with walking, not lost in thought while the body walks automatically. Just sitting means being present with sitting, not sitting physically while being mentally somewhere else entirely. This doesn't mean you never think. Thinking has its place. It's useful for planning, solving problems, learning, creating. But most thinking is neither useful nor necessary. Most of it is repetitive, circular, worried, regretful, or just mental noise. And all of this thinking covers over the simplicity and aliveness of direct experience. When you return to simplicity, you discover something surprising. Life is enough. This moment is enough. You don't need to add anything to it or get anywhere else or be anyone different. What's here right now is sufficient. Not because it's perfect or exactly what you wanted, but because it's real, it's actual, it's alive. The thinking mind is always looking for something else, something better, different, more. It's rarely satisfied with what is. It's always comparing, judging, wanting. This creates a constant sense of lack, of not enough, of needing to get somewhere else or be someone else. But in direct experience, before mind adds its commentary, there's no lack. There's just what is. The sensation of breathing,
the sound of silence or birds or wind, the feeling of your body resting. These aren't lacking anything, they're complete as they are. The sense of lack is added by thought, by comparison, by wanting things to be different. When you touch direct experience, even briefly, you taste what's always been here underneath the thinking. A simple presence, a basic okayness. Not bliss or ecstasy or enlightenment, just the ordinary, simple, sufficient reality of this moment. This is what Zen teachers mean when they say the ordinary is the extraordinary, that washing dishes is just as profound as meditation, that the sacred and the mundane are not different. When you're fully present with washing dishes, really feeling the water, really seeing the soap bubbles, really attending to the movement of washing, there's a completeness to it that's the same as the completeness of any other fully attended moment. The activity doesn't make it special, the presence does. So much of spiritual seeking is looking for something extraordinary, something special, something other than ordinary life. But what if the extraordinary is hidden in plain sight? What if it's here in the most ordinary moments, waiting to be recognized? What if enlightenment isn't somewhere else, but right here in the simple, direct experience of this moment? As you rest here tonight, you have an opportunity to practice this returning to simplicity, not as work or effort, but as allowing, letting go of the mental layers and resting in direct experience, feeling the body, hearing sounds, noticing the breath, not thinking about these things, but directly experiencing them. Thoughts will come, that's fine. They're not the enemy, but you don't have to follow them. You can notice a thought appearing and let it pass like a cloud in the sky. Return to direct experience, to the body, the breath, the sounds, simple, immediate reality. This practice of returning is the practice, not getting it right, not achieving some state, not making thoughts stop, but simply returning when you notice you've been lost in thought. Returning to what's actually here, to the simplicity underneath the mental complexity. In this returning, you might discover something, that peace is not far away, that it's not complicated, that it's not an achievement or a reward for doing something correctly. It's simply what's here when you stop adding layers of thought to simple experience, when you rest in the reality of this moment instead of your thinking about this moment.
The practice of presence. Everything we've explored tonight points toward one simple thing: being present. Not present in some special way, not present perfectly, just more present than absent, more here than lost in thought, more engaged with actual life than with mental stories about life. This is the practice. Not a practice you do for 30 minutes on a meditation cushion, though that can help. A practice you do all day long in every activity, in every moment. The practice of showing up for your own life, of being here instead of somewhere else in your mind, of attending to what's actually happening instead of being lost in what you think about what's happening. Most people spend most of their lives absent, physically present but mentally somewhere else, doing one thing while thinking about another, always slightly ahead of themselves, planning the next moment, or behind themselves, reviewing the last moment, rarely fully here for this moment. Think about your day today or yesterday. How much of it were you actually present for? How much of it happened while you were on autopilot, your body going through motions while your mind was somewhere else entirely?
You probably ate meals without tasting them, drove without seeing the road, spoke to people without really hearing them, went through entire hours that now exist only as vague blurs in your memory because you weren't really there for them. This is the human condition. We've become so identified with thinking that we live primarily in our heads, in our mental world, while actual life happens around and through us largely unnoticed. We're like people watching a movie on a phone while sitting in front of a magnificent sunset, missing the actual beauty right in front of us because we're absorbed in the screen. But it doesn't have to be this way. Presence is a capacity you already have. You've experienced it, probably many times. Moments when you were fully absorbed in something and forgot yourself completely. Moments when time seemed to stop and you were just there, fully engaged. Moments of what psychologists call flow. These moments showed you what presence feels like. The practice is making presence less accidental and more intentional. Not forcing it, not creating it, but recognizing it's available in every moment and learning to settle into it more regularly. Learning to notice when you've gone absent and gently return to presence over and over. This is the practice. You can practice with anything. Washing your hands can be a practice of presence. Usually, washing hands is automatic. You barely notice it. Your mind is already moving to the next thing. But what if you were actually present for washing hands? Feeling the water temperature, noticing the sensation of soap, hearing the sound of water, seeing the movement of hands. Just 30 seconds of full presence. That's practice. Drinking water. Usually, you drink while doing something else. Reading, watching, talking, thinking. But what if you were present for drinking? Feeling the weight of the cup, bringing it to your lips with full attention, tasting the water, feeling it move down your throat, feeling how your body receives it. Just this one action, fully experienced. That's practice. Walking from one room to another. Usually, this is just transition time, mind already in the next room or still in the last room. But what if you were present for walking, feeling your feet, noticing your balance, experiencing the movement of walking itself? Just 10 seconds of full presence with walking. That's practice. See how this works? You're not adding anything to your day. You're doing all these things anyway. You're just doing them with presence instead of on autopilot. You're showing up for your own life instead of sleepwalking through it. The beautiful thing is that presence is its own reward. When you're fully present, even ordinary activities become satisfying in a way they never are when you're absent. Washing hands with presence is more enjoyable than washing hands while thinking about something else. Not because the activity itself changed, but because you're actually experiencing it instead of missing it. This doesn't mean you have to be intensely concentrated on every small thing. That would be exhausting. It means a gentle attention, a light touch of awareness, just enough presence to be more here than gone. That's sufficient. And here's what's interesting. The more you practice presence in small moments, the more available it becomes in larger moments. The more you train the muscle of returning to presence during ordinary activities, the more readily that capacity is available when something important happens. You're more present with people, more present with beauty, more present with difficulty, more present with your own life as it unfolds. Presence also changes your relationship with time. When you're absent, lost in thought, time seems to slip by unnoticed. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months. You wake up and wonder where the time went. But when you're present, time has a different quality. It feels fuller. Even a short time fully experienced feels more substantial than a long time lived on autopilot. This is why children often have such vivid memories of childhood experiences. They were present for them. They weren't yet living primarily in thought. They were engaged with direct experience. So even short experiences left strong impressions. As adults, we can reclaim some of that vividness by being more present.
The practice of presence also naturally reduces suffering. Not all suffering, but the suffering that comes from being caught in thought. When you're fully present with washing dishes, you're not worried about tomorrow or regretful about yesterday. Those worries and regrets exist only in thought. In the present moment, there's just washing dishes. There might be the discomfort of not wanting to wash dishes, but there's not the elaborate mental suffering that comes from thinking about how much you don't want to be doing this and wishing you were doing something else, and comparing this to other things you could be doing. Presence simplifies things. In the present moment, there's just what is, one thing at a time. This breath, this step, this sensation. The complexity is all in thought about the moment, not in the moment itself. So the practice is simple, though not always easy. Notice when you're absent, lost in thought, and return to presence. Return to the body, to the breath, to the senses, to direct experience. Do this not once, but many times throughout the day. Make it a habit, a rhythm, a way of life. You can set up reminders to help. Every time you walk through a doorway, come back to presence for just a few steps. Every time you wash your hands, be present for it. Every time you sit down, take one conscious breath before doing anything else. Every time you eat, take the first bite with full attention. These regular reminders help train the habit of presence. And be gentle with yourself. You will forget constantly. You will spend long stretches lost in thought. That's normal. That's what minds do. The practice isn't never being lost in thought. The practice is noticing you've been lost and coming back. The noticing and returning is the practice. Do it with kindness, not with self-judgment. Oh, I was gone. Now I'm back. Simple as that. Over time, something shifts. Presence becomes more your default, and absence becomes more noticeable. Not because you've achieved some special state, but because you've practiced enough that being here is more familiar than being lost in thought. You've trained yourself to return, and the returning gets easier and more automatic. This is the transformation. Not a dramatic enlightenment experience, just a gradual shift toward being more present, more here, more engaged with your actual life. And this shift changes everything. Life becomes richer, fuller, more vivid. Not because life itself changed, but because you're actually showing up for it. The Garden of Now.
Imagine your attention as a garden. Most of us have let this garden grow wild. Weeds of worry take root everywhere. Thorns of resentment spread unchecked. Vines of regret climb over everything, blocking out light. We've been absent gardeners, rarely tending to where our attention actually goes, letting it wander wherever habit and conditioning take it.
But you can become a conscious gardener of your own attention. You can notice where it goes and gently guide it back to what actually serves you. This is not about controlling thoughts or forcing your mind into submission. It's about becoming more conscious of this precious resource called attention and using it more wisely. Your attention is what makes experience real for you. Whatever you attend to becomes your reality in that moment. If you attend to worried thoughts, you live in a worried reality. If you attend to present moment experience, you live in present reality. The content of your consciousness is largely determined by where you place your attention. Most people don't realize how much choice they have in this. They believe their attention is pulled around by circumstances, that they have to think about whatever pops into their head, that they have to worry about everything that could go wrong. But this is not true. You have more agency over attention than you think. Try this right now. Notice that you're hearing. Whatever sounds are present, just notice you're hearing them. You just chose to direct your attention to hearing. Now notice physical sensations, the feeling of your body resting. You just chose to direct your attention there. Now notice thinking, if thoughts are present. You just chose to direct attention to thinking. See? You can choose where attention goes. Not perfectly, not completely, but more than you probably realized. And this ability to direct attention is incredibly powerful. It's how you cultivate the garden of now. When you notice attention has wandered into worry about the future, you can gently redirect it to the present moment. When you notice you're lost in regret about the past, you can bring attention back to now. When you notice you're caught in judgment or comparison or fantasy, you can return to simple, direct experience of this moment. This returning is gardening. You're pulling weeds, not violently, not with frustration at the weeds for existing, but gently, patiently, knowing that weeding is part of gardening. The weeds will keep coming. That's their nature. Your job is to keep noticing and gently removing them, redirecting attention back to what you're actually cultivating. What are you cultivating? Presence, awareness, peace, the capacity to be here, now, regardless of circumstances, the ability to meet life directly rather than through the filter of constant thinking. These are the flowers in your garden. They grow when you tend them, when you regularly return attention to the present moment, to direct experience, to what's actually real right now, rather than what you're thinking about. Every time you notice you've been lost in thought and return to presence, you're watering these flowers. You're strengthening this capacity. It might not feel like much in any single moment, but over time, with consistent practice, the garden transforms. Presence becomes stronger. Peace becomes more accessible. The weeds of worry still appear, but they don't take over the whole garden anymore.
There's a particular aspect of this that's worth exploring. Often, our attention goes to what's wrong. This is a survival mechanism. Our brains evolved to notice threats, problems, dangers. In the ancestral environment, the person who noticed the rustle in the bush that might be a predator survived more often than the person admiring the beautiful sunset. So we inherited brains that are naturally biased toward noticing problems. This was useful when daily life involved genuine physical threats. But in modern life, this bias often creates unnecessary suffering. We scan constantly for what's wrong, what could go wrong, what did go wrong, what's not good enough, what's threatening. And we miss what's right, what's working,
what's beautiful, what's already okay. You can consciously balance this bias by directing attention to what's good, not in a fake positive thinking way, but simply noticing what's actually already okay in this moment. Your body is breathing. That's working. You have shelter. That's working. You're alive. That's extraordinary when you think about it. This doesn't mean denying problems or pretending everything is perfect. It means consciously noticing the good alongside the bad, the working alongside the broken, the beautiful alongside the difficult. It means not letting your attention be monopolized by the negative bias of your evolutionary programming. When you're gardening your attention, you can make a practice of noticing what's good, what's working, what you're grateful for, not as a technique to force happiness, but as a way to see more completely, to include in your field of attention the things that the negative bias might cause you to overlook. Right now, you can practice this. What's actually okay right now? What's not a problem in this present moment? Even if there are problems in your life, are any of them happening right now, in this exact moment? Or are they in thought about the future or past? Often you'll discover that right now, in this present moment, things are actually okay. Not perfect, but okay. The problems exist in thought, in worry about tomorrow or regret about yesterday. But here, now, this moment is manageable. This breath is happening. This experience of resting is available. This is a powerful discovery. It reveals that much of what we suffer from is not actually present. It's in our thinking about what might happen or what did happen. The present moment itself, when met directly, is often much more okay than our thinking about it suggests. This doesn't solve the practical problems in your life. You still need to address those, but it changes your relationship with them. You stop drowning in constant worry and instead address problems from a more grounded, present place. You have more resources available because you're not exhausting yourself with unnecessary mental suffering about things that aren't actually happening right now. The garden of now is this present moment, and only this present moment. It's not the past, which is memory. It's not the future, which is imagination. It's this, here, now, the felt sense of being alive in this moment. This is what you're cultivating attention toward. Every time you return here, you're tending the garden. Every time you notice you've been lost in thought about past or future and bring yourself back to the reality of now, you're strengthening presence. Every time you choose to attend to direct experience rather than the mind's commentary about experience, you're deepening awareness. This is gentle work, patient work, the work of a lifetime, really. You don't perfect it and finish. You practice it again and again. And gradually, the garden becomes more beautiful, more peaceful, more alive. Not because you forced it, but because you tended it regularly, with kindness, over time.
Integration and rest. We've wandered together through many teachings tonight. We've explored the paradox of effort, discovering that sometimes trying harder makes things worse. We've investigated the nature of awareness, recognizing that you are not your thoughts, but the space in which thoughts appear. We've learned from the seasons about acceptance and change. We've touched the difference between grasping and appreciating, between possession and freedom. We've mapped the territory of suffering, understanding how pain is inevitable, but much suffering is optional, created by our resistance to reality. We've discovered the simplicity beneath mental complexity, the direct experience that's available when we stop adding layers of thought. And we've explored presence, the practice of actually showing up for our own lives. All of these teachings point to the same essential truth. Peace is not far away. It's not something you have to achieve or earn or work toward over many years. It's available right now, in this moment, when you stop fighting with reality and simply allow yourself to be present to what is. This doesn't mean all your problems disappear. It doesn't mean life becomes easy or perfect. It means you discover a way of being with life that includes difficulty without being destroyed by it, that includes change without constant panic, that includes uncertainty without needing to control everything. You discover that you're more resilient than you thought, that you can hold more than you believed, that the awareness you are is spacious enough for all of it, the good and the bad, the pleasant and the unpleasant, the easy and the difficult. As you move forward from tonight, you don't need to remember every teaching or hold on to every word. The seeds have been planted. They'll grow in their own time, in their own way. Some will sprout quickly. Others will lie dormant for months or years before suddenly making sense. Trust this process. What you can do is practice small moments of returning to presence, brief pauses to notice you're alive, breathing, here, gentle experiments with releasing control and trusting the flow of life, quiet observations of your own awareness, the space that holds all experience. These practices don't need to be formal or difficult. They can be woven into your ordinary day. A conscious breath while waiting in line, full presence while drinking your morning coffee, noticing the sky while walking to your car, releasing tension in your shoulders and jaw several times throughout the day, choosing presence over absence when you remember to choose. And be patient with yourself. This is not a project to complete or a goal to achieve. It's a way of being to grow into gradually over time. You'll forget. You'll get lost in thought. You'll spend days or weeks on autopilot. That's okay. That's part of being human. The practice is simply noticing when you remember and gently coming back over and over. You're doing this not to become some ideal version of yourself, but to actually live the life you have, to be present for it instead of missing it while lost in thought, to discover the peace that's available even in the midst of difficulty, to find the freedom that comes from releasing the exhausting work of trying to control everything. The wisdom traditions speak of awakening, but awakening is not a dramatic event that happens once and changes everything forever. It's more like waking up from a dream again and again, waking up from the dream of thought and returning to the reality of direct experience, waking up from the dream of control and returning to the flow of allowing, waking up from the dream of being separate and discovering the connection that's always been here. You've taken time tonight to rest in these teachings, to let them touch you, to feel what they point toward. This time wasn't wasted. Seeds were planted. Perhaps you've already felt something shift, some small opening, some recognition of truth, or perhaps it all seems theoretical still, and that's okay too. Trust that what needs to land will land in its own time. For now, let everything settle. Let the teachings rest. Let your mind be quiet. Let your body be heavy and relaxed. Let everything soften and release. There's nothing more you need to do tonight. No more trying, no more effort, no more working to understand or remember or get it right. Just rest, just breathe, just be here exactly as you are. This moment is complete. You are complete. Nothing is lacking. Nothing needs to be fixed or improved or changed right now. You can simply be, and that is enough. That is more than enough. May you rest deeply. May you wake refreshed. May you carry forward some seed of what we explored together, some small wisdom that serves you. May you discover, in your own time and in your own way, the peace that's always been waiting here, closer than your next breath. Sleep well. You are held. You are safe. All is well. Rest now.